Tired of dealing with annoying flies, fruit flies, and gnats in your home? The Zevo Flying Insect Trap is your ultimate solution. Don't wait. Check out the link in the video description now to get your Zevo Flying Insect Trap on Amazon and enjoy a bug-free home today.
There are those who are alive, yet never live. There are those who are dead, yet will live forever. Great deeds inspire and encourage the living. On a hilltop in a small Mississippi town, that quote is inscribed on the grave of James Chaney, a black activist, who was gunned down at point-blank range by white supremacists. His death only came to national spotlight because he was killed by the Ku Klux Klan, KKK, alongside two white civil rights activists. 6 weeks earlier, the small town of Philadelphia, Mississippi, hadn't been a familiar sight in national newspaper headlines. That changed on June 21, 1964, when James Chaney, Andrew Goodman, and Michael Schwerner went missing in the southern town. After digging for hours on a steamy August morning, investigators finally found who they were searching for. 14 feet deep in the Mississippi mud, investigators found James, Andrew, and Michael lying face down and side by side. Throughout Mississippi and the South, the Ku Klux Klan had been unleashing a revamped campaign of terror across the South in response to the civil rights movement gaining traction across America. Churches were burned to the ground, black men and women were lynched. Less than a year earlier, Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his "I Have a Dream" speech to thousands of people in Washington, D.C. That message didn't stretch to much of America. Members of the Congress of Racial Equality, an organization which pioneered nonviolent action in the pursuit of civil rights, James, Michael, and Andrew had spent their summer working in the South. The three traveled together to Philadelphia, Mississippi, on June 20, 1964, to look at the remnants of Mount Zion Methodist Church, which had been burned down for housing a Core Freedom School. Core Freedom Schools were educational institutions set up in the most deprived parts of the South for black children during the civil rights movement in Mississippi. After interviewing witnesses, they stayed in Philadelphia for a night before piling into their station wagon to travel home. Around 5 p.m. on June 21, 1964, Neshoba County Deputy Sheriff Cecil Price pulled over the three men for speeding. After being told they could go, they were tailed by members of the KKK, who had been tipped off about the three. When they failed to return home, James, Michael, and Andrew were reported missing immediately, and their burned-out station wagon was discovered with no trace of the men. For the next month, the small southern town was swamped with FBI agents searching for the three missing men. Family and friends of the activists knew something was amiss and suspected the KKK was involved. Local authorities, including the state governor, claimed the disappearance was a hoax and publicity stunt. However, on August 4, deep in the Mississippi mud, the FBI finally found them. An informant tipped off authorities to a farm on the edge of town, where the men were found in an earthen dam. All three had been shot at point-blank range. James, the only black member of the group, was shot 3 times and castrated. It was a case that caught the attention of America. 3 civil rights workers, 2 of them white, had been brutally murdered. But the headlines also were criticized. Michael's wife, Rita Bender, was thrust into the spotlight after her husband's death, and used her platform to highlight the disparity of the case, as she knew it wouldn't have received the attention it did had white men not been some of the victims. She said at the time, "My husband, Michael Schwerner, did not die in vain. If he and Andrew Goodman had been Negroes, the world would have taken little notice of their deaths." After all, the slaying of a Negro in Mississippi is not news. It is only because my husband and Andrew Goodman were white that the national alarm has been sounded. In the years following her husband's death, Rita has dedicated her life to civil rights and practices law. But she has continually pointed out how the nation only paid attention to the killings because 2 of the men were white. In a 2014 interview, she said, "We have yet as a nation to come to terms with the fact that this is a country that was built on racism and continues to an appalling degree to thrive on racism." It's important to note that during the search for Michael, James, and Andrew, 8 other bodies of black men were discovered. 19.